Hello, hola, and bienvenidos, and welcome back to a very special episode of Football by the Numbers. You guys know me by now. My name is John. If you can't see me, because we are now fresh on Spotify and on Google Podcasts and on all those other apps like Anchor, make sure to give us a follow. Like us on YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification bell down below so you get notifications to all of our episodes. But I am joined by two very special guests, both near and dear to my heart. One that you know, Willard, the Wall. Will, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, John. I can't complain with all the soccer on TV. How about yourself?
And then all the soccer in our lives, too. You were an absolute wall in our doubleheader on our 8v8 intramural team in our Sunday league, man. You stopped a ton of shots. One of our games resulted, unfortunately, in a loss, but the other one, you came up huge. Both games were decided by one goal, though. And we are joined by a very special new guest, my boy, John, the other Wall, the monster center back who played against us for one game, but with us in another. Really excited to have him on the pod. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I've been looking forward to doing this. So I had a 2-0 weekend in my games that we played against each other. And some of the teams that I was rooting for on TV won as well. So yeah, lots of soccer. Nothing to complain about there.
So this first game that we're going to talk about, as you can tell if you're watching on YouTube, is the Copa America final. Decided by one goal by Mr. Angel Di Maria, the magician himself, 33 years old. This Copa America tournament was a little unlike every other Copa America tournament. So usually the Copa America is 12 teams. This time it was 10. They decided to cut back on the two guest teams that they normally have in the tournament because of COVID and because there's a lot of outbreaks down in South America. So at first the tournament was called Copa America, Argentina and Colombia, because that's where the tournament was going to be played. It was canceled and then reinstated in different countries and then canceled again. Finally, President Obrador in Brazil decided to have it in Brazil across a couple of different venues with no crowds, or in the last final match, a very limited crowd. Brazil have won the Copa every time it was in Brazil until now. This was unfortunate for Mr. Neymar. The build-up to it, Brazil looked pretty good, beating Venezuela 3-0, Peru 4-0, Colombia 2-1 in the group stage. They drew 1-1 to Ecuador, and then they beat Chile and Peru 1-0 in the quarters and semis up to the final. Argentina looked a little sketchier in the group stage. They drew Chile 1-1, but they did beat Uruguay and Paraguay 1-0 and had a convincing win against Bolivia 4-1. And then they beat Ecuador 3-0 in the build-up to the finals. Let's just get into it, guys. What did we think of the final game? John, let's go to you, our special guest. What did you think of the final game?
I feel like a lot of fans got what they wanted in terms of having a different winner, for one thing. If you're a Messi fan, you certainly feel vindicated for being in defense of him for so many years. I think that it was an aggressive game, which I certainly expected, especially watching the Copa at the same time as the Euro Cup. You can see the difference in styles, sometimes the difference in quality or passing or just identity. I felt like a lot of the Copa teams had similar identities, but Argentina versus Brazil, those were two very clearly defined different style teams that were well polished. You could see who better used their stars and let their stars shine more in this game. I mean, it was a one-goal game, so that wasn't everything that we all hoped for. But as far as that goal goes, it was a nice piece of grace in the moment. I don't know if it was like the most satisfying end ever, but you could feel the tension through the whole game, and that's what I loved about it.
The Brazil-Argentina historic rivalry has been one of the most famed across all of football, even more so than Germany-England, which has gone back since the 40s. You know, this has been a long time thing, and of course we've seen so many greats across South America with Pelé, with Maradona, and now with Messi coming through, and so many other greats. You know, you got R9, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo on the Brazilian side, and many more Argentinians. Will, what did you think of the final game? Were you satisfied with the result?
Yeah, I think John, summed it up really well. I was just happy most fans got the two teams they wanted to see in the final. They made it all the way. As a neutral, I'm just glad that, it was a close, tightly contested match. Obviously, like John mentioned, there were, over like 20 plus fouls between both sides in the match, which was different to see when you're watching the Euros. The goal was just beautiful through ball by the Argentina defender. I don't even know.
It was Rodrigo de Paul, the center mid, who's on his way to Atletico Madrid from Udinese.
Were either of you similarly fooled like me and thinking that he was offsides at first?
Yes, I was. I think it might have been ruled. Well, I'm not sure if it would have been ruled offsides had Angel Di Maria been sitting offsides, because I'm not sure if Renan Lodi got a touch to the ball. And if he had gotten a touch to the ball, it wouldn't have been like a direct pass. So I'm not sure if it would have been ruled offsides or not. But yeah, I was absolutely, the whole time I was sitting there, referee, what are you doing? That's offsides. But yeah, it was a beautiful chip shot.
In real time, as you watch the camera kind of pan over from the defense to the offense, that was just kind of what I based it off of. I was like, he tends to be offsides a lot. Wasn't that one of them? So in that way, it felt a little anticlimactic, but you got to hand it to the guy. I am not a Di Maria fan in general. I feel like he stood on the shoulders of a lot of his teammates. So to have him come through, like, hey, good for him. And while, again, it wasn't the most flashy goal, that's a difficult thing to do in that moment. You're trying to charge at that full speed. You see that the keeper's coming out, and he just floated it right where he needed to.
And as competitive as the game was and as aggressive as it was, it seemed like there was a lack of pressure on him at that stage once he got the ball through one-on-one with Aderson. He did a perfect chip shot into the back of the net, but it really, to me, seemed like there was a lack of pressure from Lodi, from Thiago Silva, and from Marquinhos. It just kind of seemed like they threw their hands up and said, well, he's through.
Yeah, I guess I would agree that they let up. Maybe they were just hoping to get an offsides call there. Or maybe they're like me and are used to Di Maria missing a lot of his chances and thought he would blow it. That's where I was going to go.
I've followed Di Maria for a long time. I liked him when he was at Real Madrid. I didn't really like him when he was at Manchester United, I thought. But that's more because I don't really like Manchester United, and I think they're pretty good at wasting talent. Like if you look at more recently in these years, if you look at Pogba, the discrepancy between his performance with France versus with United. Donny van de Beek only started 4 matches this year, so I think they really wasted him. Same thing with like Payet and Memphis Depay.
I completely agree with you on Pogba most particularly.
And then at PSG, I guess he does fine.
He gets most of his attention or credit when he's playing with the national team, and Messi will do all this work, draw all this attention, and then all he has to do is like get a couple touches, give it back, or take the shot. And so often he just like doesn't do what he's supposed to. Or when he does score, it's kind of like, yeah, but that was a layup at that point. I don't know. I guess you could call me a hater. I think he's kind of gotten overhyped as a result of that. But here's a point where he stood up to the hype.
Hater
Before I give my
those
opinion,
are very,
I have a question
very
about
valid critiques of Angel Di Maria, even if you're the biggest Di Maria fan. But I'm glad you guys brought up Messi, because I thought Messi was a pretty big non-factor. He doesn't look as quick as he used to. He's still an extremely good passer. It didn't look like he had too many good shots. Most of them were blocked anyway. My man of the match had to go to Rodrigo de Paul. I think he pulled off an excellent performance with one key pass being an assist, 58 touches of the ball. He completed 29 of his 37 passes, 3 of 5 accurate long balls, and 11 of 18 ground duels won. For me, he was my man of the match. If not him, then Gonzalo Montiel, the right back for Argentina, who was bleeding from his ankle like half the game, I swear. Like his sock was caked in blood, but he had 8 tackles and interceptions, 9 ground duels won out of, I think, 10. 4 clearances, a blocked shot, 53 touches from the right back, which almost equaled Rodrigo de Paul, and an 80% pass completion. But what do you guys think?
what you said. You felt like the man of the match had to be a defender in this close 1-0 game?
Defender or a playmaking holding midfielder, yes.
I think you're on the right track there. The easy answer is just to say Di Maria, and it's easy for a reason, so I wouldn't contest anyone saying that. I'm kind of with you in as far as your point about Messi kind of being a non-factor for so long. It's kind of been a frustration that when he plays with the national team, you can tell before the game, he's not coached. The coach says, go out there and be yourself. yourself. Just float around, see where you can make plays, be that X factor. And instead of being an X, it's like he kind of doesn't show up. Now, don't get me wrong. Free kicks and place kicks, he is as apparent as ever. He makes that ball dip and dive and twist and do things that nobody else is doing right now. So you don't have to have your same speed to do that. Other games, he turned it on this tournament. He stepped up in this whole tournament. This game, I think that he's less of a factor because Brazil wasn't about, they know what it's like having a guy like that on the field. They've got one. So they know how to shut that down. They are far more willing to say, we're going to give one-on-ones in other parts of the field, but we're going to stick to this guy. And so I think that you can actually credit Brazil for making Messi more of a non-factor this game rather than pinning that to Messi himself. But despite that, he didn't get discouraged. He didn't have any bad fouls or bad plays. And he did his job. And when he needed to kind of open up the field, open up space for other people, he did that. And a lot of the work in soccer is done off the ball.
Will, what do you think? I think John gave a pretty great breakdown of Messi, and I completely agree. And I think he's lost a yard or two of pace, but those free kicks, I would not want him taking a free kick within 40 yards of the goal. The way he moves that ball is absolutely, it's a wonder.
It's magic, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, John, again, nailed it. I mean, he's moving into a different phase of his career. At this age, he's definitely lost a step, deadly on set pieces. And I just think there's so much pressure on him, at Argentina to win international titles and trophies. And I would say that the group around him is also aging. They don't have a lot of young offensive talent that's ready right now. Who comes to mind is Di Maria, Aguero, close to retirement.
They're
along with
aging
Messi.
stars, yeah. And then you have some people hitting their stride and hitting their peak, but don't seem to really fit in with the national team yet, and have to go into a rework like Lautaro Martinez and Rodrigo de Paul. They're good. Don't get me wrong, but it feels like you're kind of squishing together some old with some new, some red with some blue, instead of saying, all right, here's my team, let's bake a delicious cake. So we talked a little bit about men of the match. I won't get too into Brazil. I wanted to shout out Paqueta and Richarlison. I think they both had an excellent game. Paqueta had a good match rating. He's only 23 years old, plays for AC Milan, had one key pass, 5 tackles, 52 touches. Richarlison, to me, doesn't seem like a winger. It seemed like he and Neymar needed to switch, and Tite got the false 9 thing completely wrong. I think Richarlison is more of a pressing forward. I think he can play the wing for an Everton team who has a Dominic Calvert-Lewin who's gigantic and can head the ball into the back of the net like nobody's business. But it seemed to me like Richarlison needed to be more in the center of the field. I was asking another friend of ours who was a big Brazil fan, and he said that Richarlison seemed to be so good and so bad in the same game, and that he'd do something so well and then instantly do something poorly.
They have so much talent that you gotta put him somewhere, and yeah, it's not a great fit on the wing.
Would you have swapped Neymar and Richarlison in the lineup?
No, I think I would have kept them where they were.
At first, I don't like the sound of that, but the more I think about it, maybe not every match. But here's the thing that would be good about putting Neymar out at the wing. He's going to take a lot less fouls. You got to think about that across the point of a tournament. Everybody's coming up, stopping the ball right before him, chipping him, pushing him down, all of that. I know that these guys look like they're not very tough by the end of that tournament because they're falling down at every little bit, but some of it is injury on top of injury. So I try not to be too harsh a critic. Don't get me wrong. If there's a team that flops, it's Brazil. They're one of them, and they do it. They're coached into it. They know how to do it. That doesn't mean that guy did not take a beating over the course of this tournament. When you have such a big stratification of teams that are at the top of the table and then teams that are nowhere near, that to me means you've got many more dangerous games for your stars. You have people who just want to make a name for themselves, or they're behind the speed of the game. So what do you do if you're behind the speed of the game? You do something risky and you start taking people out. So extended point to say, I do like that idea. I don't know if this would be the game to do that. Like you were saying, Will, you've got so many star players. Normally, Brazil suffers from an embarrassment of riches, right? It's kind of like, all right, we got an awesome bench. We got all-stars on the field. Where do we put all these guys? And on top of that, they tend to be diverse enough that they have no excuse if they're in a different position than normal to not be playing that to its fullest. When you get into club play, that's when you can debate having the right formation, having the right guy, and things like that. You can nitpick that a little bit more. to your point, I could see moving Neymar out to the side, especially when you're ready to sub players out. Don't be afraid to move your stars around. If they're getting shut down, switch it up. That's what you've got subs for.
And I think the game would have definitely gone differently without the Gabi Jesus red card against. It was either Chile or Peru when he had a high boot. And so that lack of the out-and-out number 9 and having to play Neymar in that central role, you're kind of between a rock and a hard place for sure. It's easy to look back and say, oh, well, Richarlison played better and took more shots on target when he was in the center of the pitch. He had a lot of aerial duels won against the Argentinian defense. Tite had a good option with Neymar in the center and trying to have both wings cut in with Everton and Richarlison and trying to play kind of the Liverpool style offense. I just don't think he had the resources to do it. The final question that I have to ask, because all of football punditry is asking it now. Messi has now quashed the, well, he doesn't have the international trophy argument by winning the Gold Cup, the Copa America. Does this solidify him as the greatest of all time, or do we give that to Ronaldo or somebody else?
If my math is correct, I mean, this super close race for me between Messi and Ronaldo. But I've got Messi with 34 domestic titles, Ronaldo with 30. Internationally wise, I've got 1 Olympic gold for Messi, and then the World Cup final, and obviously this Copa America championship. And then Ronaldo, I have the 1 Euro and the 1 Nations League title. So I think when it all comes down to it, to me, I think the difference is that World Cup final where Argentina lost to Germany in 2014. I think that is the difference for me, that Ronaldo and Portugal haven't made it quite that far in the World Cup. So I would give the title to Messi, and I just prefer him as a player, a more versatile guy, attacking and creating for others, and Ronaldo's pretty much purely a amazing finisher.
So this is a great tournament. It's an awesome format. And of course, it's nice to have something that we can compare to the Euros, right? Because a lot of focus is put on the Euros, and especially when you look back across someone's career, you're saying, what did you do in your league play for your club? What did you do internationally between the World Cups and then Euros, Copa? However, for me, I personally don't put as much stock into the Copa America. Not that this wasn't a great feat, and not that this isn't a big statement for Messi, for Argentina. Like, they took down a giant, okay? Because I don't care what international tournament you're in, if you're playing against Brazil, that's a big deal. What this says to me for Messi and his career is no different than what it said beforehand. He, I think, is the most well-rounded offensive player. Ronaldo is, like Will said, he's a goal scorer. This isn't anything that's new to people. Ronaldo, I would say, is probably the greatest goal scorer. Are either of them my personal favorite players? No, but if someone's talking about the greatest player, yeah, you bow in their graces. Who would I build a team around? Messi, 100% of the time. The best part is this conversation doesn't even need to stop. Yes, this was a great definitive win for so many reasons, but hey, what comes up next year? We got the World Cup. And I agree with Will. It is a much bigger statement to me that even though they lost in the final of a World Cup, the fact that Argentina made it there on the back of Messi, I would say it says a lot more for him all the way to the finals, even losing in the finals, versus if you're going to make a one-to-one comparison of what Ronaldo's done with Portugal. The debate on the other side is Ronaldo has probably done more with less support at times, but his team has also fallen flat more as far as international play goes, which for me, I put more stock in international play because people's passions are there. It feels like a more true form of the game compared to club play, but obviously you have to have solid club play to even be in the discussion.
See, I line up on the other side of the debate personally. I think that, Will, you bring up an excellent point about trophy. Let me just preface this. I think skill-wise, pound for pound, there's nobody that comes close to Messi. Messi is absolutely one of the most gifted dribblers, free kick takers, and just all-around offensive wingers and center forwards in the entire world. That being said, I personally think Ronaldo is the greatest of all time because he's played in multiple different leagues, winning titles in 3 different leagues, potentially 4 if he goes to Paris. The Premier League, I think we can all agree, is a much harder league to start off in. And I know he started off at Sporting over in the Portuguese league, but going to Manchester United and scoring 40 goals in the Premier League off the wing, winning a double with the Champions League, League and with the domestic title with Manchester United multiple times. And then going to Real Madrid, winning 3 straight Champions League with Zinedine Zidane. I think he won more in his tenure there. I think he's won 4. And then to go to Juventus and be the top scorer and win the league title twice with them. It shows more clout. The Euros, I don't take anything away from beating Brazil. That is an extremely hard feat. But I think the road to get to the final to Brazil is a lot easier than it is to get to the final of Euro 2016 and to beat the best team in the world at that time with France. Look at how stacked they were in 2016 compared to Argentina now. I don't think that a defense of an aging Otamendi and Gonzalo Montiel even compares to the French defense that they had in 2016 with Umtiti, with Varane, with Longley, Theo Hernandez, Lucas Hernandez. Nothing against Messi. He is an amazing player. I personally put more stock in that Euro 2016 final than I do in the Copa America 2021 final. Additionally, as far as international play goes, I think I rate Messi less as far as international play goes because Argentina have had such strong attacking talent. And even in the early days with Javier Mascherano just locking down that midfield and having that Barcelona connection with Messi, and they still come up short in World Cup finals. I think they lost in the semis or the quarters to Germany in 2010. They lost in the final in 2014 to Germany. They lost to Chile in the Gold Cup. Argentina had Aguero. They had Messi. They had Di Maria. I believe they had Mascherano at the time. And then Chile had Alexis Sanchez and Arturo Vidal. But I think the end of this debate has to be we are the luckiest generation of football fans because we got to see 2 of the greatest players of all time, and in my opinion, the top 2. I think that with Ronaldo passing Pele in official goals, these players absolutely pushed each other to do better and better, and their ceiling was raised with the competition from the other player. And just to see these 2 even compete in the same league, to see the revenue loss that happened with La Liga when Ronaldo left. I mean, we are just much more blessed than the generation before us to see Maradona and Serie A with Napoli or to see Pele.
I mean, you bring up great points, and I don't feel passionately enough to be like the staunchest defender of Messi. I think that previously in international play, he just seemed to play with less heart. Don't get me wrong, he was upset when they lost, but that was the thing that impressed me the most. He willed his team to victories in this tournament, and so he impressed me more by this performance than he has in the past as far as play with Argentina. Comparing him to Ronaldo, they're just such different types of players. I think Ronaldo is a physical freak in the best way possible. I think that he has all the gifts. He's just a gorgeous looking man. But Messi is what people aspire to, even if they're born without all those gifts. They want to be that creative player. They want to be that person who works hard, who's always hustling down the field when the play really means something. And so you're right. We're just blessed. We're lucky to see it. And the best point that you made is that we got to see them play with and against each other, even in the same league.
I liked your point about Ronaldo, and I think maybe he had the better peak on his time with Man U and Real Madrid.
Well, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening on Spotify. Go check us out on all these other platforms like Anchor, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Make sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, hit the notification bell, comment down below who you think's better, Messi or Ronaldo. Thank you guys again for watching. We are Football by the Numbers.